What's up, everybody? I'm getting too big for the frame here. I'm gonna have to scoot this thing back, baby. All right, today, what are we talking about today? We got some stuff that's gonna get a little deep. So like I said, as I've been going back in therapy, as I prepare for some projects to kind of explain things that I've noticed and seen, we've been talking about identifying red flags in parents, people around us. And you know what? This is an important video. I'm going to specifically focus on Lori because I can see with a completely different perspective now. But this is going to be hopefully helpful for a lot of other people because this is going to show you, like, there are certain things that you can see way ahead of time that, if treated correctly, could not necessarily, let's never try to play the what if game, but if you can get the right help, I truly believe a lot of things wouldn't happen. Some of the worst things wouldn't happen in the world. So welcome to the video. We in a stew, baby. And feeling pretty good today, I'm not gonna lie. Learning how to love myself, brother. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. You gotta look at yourself and say, look, I love you, brother. And you gotta stop feeling bad for yourself sometimes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. So this is going to be something that I want to dive into on each piece, right? And kind of where I could have said, hey, if I would have seen this in the correct light, if I didn't. And again, I want to say something that's going to be really hard to, it was really hard for me to accept, but you just don't know what you don't know. And your normal growing up is the only normal you have until you have a new normal. So I say that because people can say what they want, but until they've walked in your shoes, if you don't know, I didn't know Lori was that crazy. I thought what she said was off the wall. The obsession with the end of the world, the obsession with death, those things really were scary to me, but it didn't mean that I felt like it was so abnormal because I didn't have anything to compare it to. So I think a lot of times that's what we are, like how we cope. We don't know that things can be so drastically different till we're older and we get a different perspective and you move out of your own house and you see other dynamics. You just don't know what you don't know. So I want to go ahead and say that don't ever feel ashamed or feel like you wish you knew something you didn't know. It's just that simple. You don't have the answers, and so there's nothing wrong with that. So anxiety disorders. Number one thing I want to talk about. Lori had an unbelievable amount of anxiety. This is very real. She had a ton of anxiety, and this anxiety really trickled down to her kids. Again, I try not to really speak on Tylee on behalf of Tylee because she's not here to explain herself, and it's just not really fair for me to really tell you guys where she was mentally, only from what I observed. So we'll get into, more on my side and what I observed. But this anxiety really is projection of the future or fear-based. So we had a lot of fear growing up. A lot of it was inflicted by Lori. If you grow up thinking that you saw the end, you knew the end of the world was coming. You are the one that knows the end of the world is coming. Guess what? I've seen a lot of other people who grew up this way, right? Even people who are just obsessed with the second coming. We've talked about this, guys. As someone who believes in Jesus, your obsession of him coming back is actually, I don't know. I don't think it's the right way to go about life. Being obsessed with something that you think is going to happen at this certain time is going to cause more damage than I think good. All you can do is continue to live your life, and I don't think God expects people to be sitting on the edge of their seat every single moment. And I've seen these. This just happened recently. If you guys didn't know, there was like a TikTok trend where everybody thought they were going to be raptured. So a bunch of people on TikTok like sold their cars, like went to the extreme because like, yeah, I'm getting raptured. And these people said we're getting raptured. There's all this trending rapture stuff. Well, guess what? Nobody got raptured. So now you don't have a car or a home or whatever extreme, lengths you went to. You don't have to prepare in that way. You prepare your heart. You don't prepare every single thing. And again, this is where anxiety comes into. You project into the future and you're telling your kids all the time that doom is coming, that there's no point. So I grew up with a feeling of there is no point in life. Guess what? I believe truly that Lori had a lot of suicide ideology that trickled through her life into us because that feeling of there is no point takes away all hope, right? So I want to say, if you have someone who's very hopeless, This is definitely one of those things. And I think that this goes into anxiety, because anxiety is that projection of the future that you can't do anything about. Guess what? If right now, today, the world comes to an absolute halt and things go to hell, even if you have everything you need, you will never truly fully be prepared, no matter what you do, because that's just how life is. Life comes fast, and you can only be so prepared for something, but you can't prepare for the end of the world. So if there were some kind of apocalyptic thing, having a bunker, whatever, okay. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying. I've watched a lot of people debate their Walking Dead theory and this and that. I don't know. I think that obsessing over something, right, like the end of the world, or that you're going to die and have a timetable, causes a lot of anxiety in others, but also is I don't matter. And I want to say something. And this is where I get to with her when it comes to her saying she had cancer and her saying those types of things to victimize. When people victimize themselves, it's truly because they think they have to have an ailment to be loved. Really, if you break all of that down, I see it's someone begging to be noticed and loved. So if they have an ailment, like made up like that, they're begging you to love them, because if they're sick, you have to take care of them, and if you take care of them, they feel loved. It's a wound that constantly plays on itself, right? Borderline personality disorder. Now, like I said, when I was growing up, the things that I saw, now I can diagnose that. I mean, again, not a therapist, psychologist, or professional or medical doctor, okay? This is an opinion. This is my observation. But I did see it. I now believe what I saw was a personality disorder, which is you are dealing with different people, right? I want to make it very clear. This has ranges, okay? So if someone has a personality disorder, that doesn't necessarily mean everyone fits into one category. There's the extreme versions, there's the less extreme versions, and everything in between, right? So there's no perfect exact way to diagnose any of this. But the personality disorder, what I'm talking about, is the switch from sweet, nice, fun to crazy. Everything you said is a weapon. I've done everything for you. I can't believe you'd ever turn against me. I can't believe you're my enemy, to the extremes. We're talking hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold. That is the personality part, because it's such an extreme 180, right? It's okay to get upset. It's okay to have feelings. But when your feelings are literally night and day differences, and everything is a 10, that reflects back inside of who they are. So for Lori, that is exactly how I grew up, which made me emotionally vulnerable and constantly scared of people's reactions, right? And so I just internalize everything, and I don't really go out and say exactly how I feel. And so and I think men do this in general, but you internalize because you don't have a safe place to go with those feelings. If you're feeling really bad, this is how it always went. I'd go to Lori and say, hey, I'm having this really big problem. I'm really stressed out. And then her reaction's like, oh my gosh. Oh. And so you feel worse. There's no solution. And now you've just made someone else feel bad and you've triggered them. And so you're playing the game of catch up. You're playing a game of extremes. And so at some point you just stop having those feelings and those needs, and you become a coping, you learn how to cope with yourself, whatever that looks like. You self-cope though. You don't really look to have that. And so that's what I grew up with, and something I've had to break out of, because it caused a lot of damage for me as a person to think that I have to always, hold those feelings inside of me, which is what we talked about the last couple of weeks, is really dangerous. It causes a lot of anger, resentment, hurt, and loneliness when you hold your feelings inside of you and you don't get to express those things. Okay. Now, mood disorders. This can kind of fall into the same thing, but when you hold everything inside because you don't want to change their mood, you're constantly in a place of pleasing them, and you're literally walking on eggshells. And you constantly feel as if you're not allowed to do something because the trigger of them. They are so hair trigger, okay? Hair trigger means on a gun, means if you touch it, it shoots, not even pull it all the way. I use that analogy because that's what it feels like. It's like you don't know when it's going to go off. And so you do live in a state of anxiety, in a state of don't poke the bear, always tiptoe. And for that, that's the mood shifting, right? So the depression and And you know what? I had a cyclical thing, I would say between 16 and 17, where I was really up and down. It was either completely high on life or really low in life. And that was, part of my depression that I was going through. They actually brought this up in court, which I thought was really effed up, because Lori wanted to try to make a point that she helped me through that. She didn't do shit. All right. Sorry. She just didn't. She didn't help me through my depression. I never could lean on my mom emotionally to give me what I really needed. It was a stable person. And the more I watch movies, when you watch people like Robin Williams in the Therapy movie, I always forget the name. Good Will Hunting. When you see something like that, when it's like what you say doesn't throw a grenade at someone, what a refreshing thing. What an amazing feeling to say how you feel and them not explode back with this, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Or whatever they do, whether it's anger, sadness, shame, whatever they do to you, they start crying or they freak out. Now you're consoling the person that you are going to for help. That's how I grew up. I don't know if you guys have dealt with that, but this is an unhealthy relationship, whatever that looks like for you in your life. It is not solely your responsibility to carry the emotional burden of not triggering someone or not upsetting that person or always falling in line a certain way, because that's really in itself a prison cell. It's more like, hey, do this in this parameter so you can exist and survive, and you'll get some food and you'll get whatever. Sometimes you'll get a steak thrown into your cell at some point emotionally, maybe, and you keep doing your good thing, soldier, and one day you might get what you want from me or never, and you'll chase that forever. So I see a lot of people doing this to this day. Their lives are fueled by this rejection of their parents, that I have to become something. I have to be more. I have to be different. I have to show them that I am this thing. I think that is a huge complex in Lori that I see now, is that she always wanted to prove herself to the world, right? This is where the modeling comes in. This is where the TV shows come in. This is where this desire to be known and famous and this desire to live life a certain way really came down to, she wanted to be acknowledged and worshiped. Well, the reason she wanted to be worshipped, in my opinion, is that worship comes from a wound of never feeling like you were ever enough as you were. And so villains, as we always talk about, usually are a tragic character because they're a broken human being that fuels everything they do evil through that lens of brokenness, right? So you always hear it, like the orphan person becomes the evil person, or, you see Darth Vader's a tragic character, or, something bad happens in someone's life and they make the wrong decisions because it's all fueled through that emotional drive, right? We talk about movies all the time to give you guys more context. It's the same thing kind of like with Walter White. You get in this position, you get cancer, and your first thought is, I'm going to do this thing, even though I know this is wrong morally. It doesn't matter because I'm already in a bad position. And the thing I think is really interesting about a character like that is that Walter White also emotionally becomes this dominant person because he's kind of the, can to kick for people. He gets made fun of. He's not a badass. He doesn't feel like he owns his life. He's out of control in his own life. And so what does he do? He becomes the controller. He becomes the boss. You get it? It's this idea that I have to step on top of what's hurting me. Well, I think that this is exactly how Lori ended up where she is. OCD, I have never seen Lori with OCD, so I'm going to go ahead and say I don't think that really applies to her. Now, intrusive thoughts and OCD are not the same thing. If you guys want to look into obsessive compulsive disorder, like I said, there's ranges here. There's very high and very medium to mild. Intrusive thoughts are different because people, what I've heard most people say that OCD is that OCD is like people have to flick the light on 15 times exactly before they leave. That's a form of it, but not everybody who has OCD does stuff like that. What most people who struggle with OCD is that things are, you can't get past that thing the way that it is. They want things done more in a specific way. And again, my personal thing, and this is an observation. I'm not trying to ever diagnose or say anything, but my observation is for a lot of people who have OCD probably grew up in an environment where they didn't really have much control of anything. And that would obviously make you want to do things a certain way because you never really had a hand on the wheel. And as children, I think we're supposed to be taught how to navigate our lives, our thoughts, our feelings, and be navigating ourselves as a human being because life is hard and it's very complex. So Lori never had this maturity in her life And I don't think she ever got to this point. And again, I want to touch on that later, but PTSD, absolutely, she had this. I think her whole life was one big trauma ball. And every time she took a lick, she just kept moving. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys right now, I'm not saying that you're going to end up being in her position, but getting help for yourself is the healthiest, best thing you can do, because it's how long do you want to feel that way? Talking it through is not as scary as you think it is. And talking this stuff out with a therapist, a good therapist, is not going to make you feel ashamed or worse or anything like that. What happens, I think, is you address it and it stops to have that hold on you. And so your lens can kind of clean out. We talked yesterday about how water can flow like a waterfall, and these roads get made in our life based off of trauma. And when that trauma happens, it can create new pathways in our brain. And now we filter water through those new pathways that we created, which means there's constantly a thought going down that path that was created at the wrong time. I always get this said by my therapist. She's amazing. And she says things like, imagine this as the healthiest version of you. And I go, well, that wouldn't exist. That wouldn't exist. You could almost, like, if you could put yourself in a computer and pull out all the bad stuff in your life, you can start to say, wow, like I don't need to function this way, or I can see myself getting past this. And it's just the hope that you need to have. When it comes down to it, PTSD is very complex. Like we talked about, there's ranges. People have it worse. People have the night terrors. You can have the physical reactions. It shuts you down a lot of times. It shuts your life down when you have an episode where you are triggered over the PTSD and something really gets you. And you know what? Those are things we cannot necessarily handle. Like we talked about yesterday, certain smells, certain things can trigger you back to a memory that exists in your mind. And sometimes you don't even know it's there. So this is where this comes down to, though, is if you are going through this, this is what is important to notice, that these things can be changed. But if not, there's just this big wound that honestly, where is it going? It just keeps rotting. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. I'm not trying to say you have to go get help. I'm just telling you there's a healthy way to deal with all of these pieces. And I'm telling you right now, if Lori would have found the help she needed, she wouldn't be here. But you have to make decisions in your life, one way or the other. But she definitely had PTSD from her entire life before she met me. This is where I can't speak to it, but I have an opinion and theory here. And you guys know I'm not a big theory guy, just because I don't know if theories are the most healthy things to have, only in the sense of they're really just conjecture with not too much of a base. But I'll say this. I believe that she is imaginative enough to hear or have a conversation in her head without feeling, what's the word? I honestly believe she is having conversations, but I don't know if she's having a actual conversation with a demon or something. I truly believe that she is having back and forth with herself. And I say that because, you know, I kind of think of this in like when we talked about the psychopath video. Let's just kind of go to that place, that psychopath video that we made. The psychopath video really just says this, okay? The psychopath video about her was where someone is mentally, if they have empathy and all these other factors. When it comes to her, she's in such a delusion that she's put herself in, by the way. This delusion is self-inflicted delusion. Delusion is disassociation. Her disassociation is coming from a place of wanting to avoid reality so much that she has literally tricked herself to believe whatever she's feeding herself. I tell you guys this every time we talk about mental health. Your mind is so much more powerful than you think. The way you speak to yourself, the things you tell yourself on a regular basis you are what you eat. It's real. This is real mentally just as much as it is physically. If you don't know what that means, when you eat something, it literally metabolizes and breaks down into cells and goes into your body to do a function. So if you're eating protein, that protein is going in to do what protein is supposed to do, which is feed your muscles. If you're eating crap, it's going to try to do those things, but it's also going to cause the other issues. This is the same exact thing mentally. What you're consuming when it comes to media, what you're doing with your life every single day, you become a product of the thing that you're consuming. And so this is where she could have had a different life because you have to learn how to get control of yourself a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole tangent about every person because it's always very case to case. I just truly believe this is where we have to start seeing ourselves differently. We have the power over ourselves. That is the one thing we get to control. We can't control other people. We can't control circumstances. We can't control the weather. Tells Zulema. I'm telling you right now, you have no real control of anything. It's all outside of you, except for how you act, your actions, and what you do for yourself every single day. Those exist in this one real way. I wake up and choose what I put into my body. I wake up and treat people a certain way. And I work on myself and I choose to do these things differently. Imagine if Lori would have had enough self-discipline to say those things to herself other than becoming a product of whatever the hell she is now. A monster. A monster, basically. She's turned herself into a monster and she's accepted that role because villains do this a lot. You know? They really do this. Yes, thank you, Stacy. Exactly. I'm telling you right now. I'll tell you right now. This is not easy. In no way, shape, or form am I laying out a roadmap here to tell you, hey, yeah, this is easy. No, it's a constant decision making going into the betterment of yourself to stop yourself and stop living in autopilot and become more understanding of yourself and be self-aware. Again, psychopaths a lot of times are hurt, damaged in some capacity of their life, and they just become a product of their brains, and their brains fantasize these things. And I truly believe that a psychopath could have help in therapy because there's tools that can help you understand. A lot of times when psychopaths do what they do, they're trying to feel something. That is like the number one thing I notice in life with people. When people do take substances, they're trying to feel something, whether it's faded, gone, high, whatever the case may be. They're trying to feel something, right? This even happens when you watch popular pop culture. Dexter always says the only time he feels the most alive is this single moment when he takes unalive someone, right? That is the whole point, is that there's something about human beings that when you feel numb and dry, you're feeling like you need to do something to invoke some kind of emotion and feeling or anything but numbness and emptiness and a void. But look at exactly like Dexter. We'll do a breakdown on Dexter some other time. But to have a traumatic event in your life to shape you as a person, well, imagine if that traumatic event is treated correctly, it doesn't have to become this other thing. It's the fact that Dexter's traumatic event in the pop culture was never dealt with correctly. And now he becomes this thing over time because that trauma really seeped into his soul. I want to stop you and say that's the point, is that you have to look at yourself and say, okay, it's stopping at the fork. I get to make decisions today. I might have made the wrong one yesterday, but I'm going to try to make the right one today. I'm going to try to really care about myself today. I'm going to put good things into my body. I'm going to take care of my mental health. I'm going to love myself for once. I'm going to stop hating myself. I'm going to stop self-sabotaging. I'm going to stop telling myself that there's no point. And I've told you guys, I've been there. I grew up this way. Laura used to say stuff like, it doesn't even matter. You go get into debt, go to school, do whatever you want, pull out every loan you can. It doesn't matter. The world's going to end. And if I would have followed through, I would be the one suffering the real life consequences of a woman who did not feel like there were consequences. And it's because she lived in a fantasy world. Because she chose that her life was too hard to face the truth in those hard places, that she would rather create a escape. And then when that becomes your new normal, you're in the matrix, man. You put yourself in the matrix, okay? And you can just pretend. And, excuse me. Yeah, she was diagnosed with religious delusions. Again, what that looks like, though, her seeing Jesus, for example, I truly believe can be a product of her mind. Her just believing that she saw Jesus and had a conversation. If you believe something enough, it can manifest itself into your brain. And I'm not a fan of manifestation in the sense of what it's talked about now. I think it's a little bit more misunderstood to think that you're just manifesting all these things. I think manifestation is a product of me. To me, what manifestation would look like is I would say, I really want to get this thing, but I'm going to work really hard to do it, and it's achievable. That's how I think of manifestation. I think some people think if you just think about it long enough, it will just happen to you. We don't need to get into a debate about it, but that's not what I think about it. But when it comes to your mental, manifestation can look like a delusion of the sense of I'm having a conversation with Albert Einstein and he's roasting me about my hat. And I take it as literal because my mind is already so far gone, so disconnected from reality. That's what it gets down to. You're so disconnected already that you don't want to live in real life, that when you can't physically escape, when you can't leave your life, you can't leave your circumstances, what do? You mentally learn how to escape. And so that's exactly what happened to her, is that she started to mentally escape, just like Chad, make up stories and never be grounded and never want to live in your real life and work on yourself and put in some hard work because it's too hard. It's not too hard. Come on now. It's not too hard. It's worth it, right? In the long term. What if it's a lifelong process? Well, it's worth it. There's no timetables. There's no perfect way to do it. I don't believe she's schizophrenic. That's just my own personal. I've gone back and forth with this. Her visitations that she's lied about with Tylee and JJ, I think are manifestations of her mind, which are her trying to feel less guilty, to pretend that their spirits left heaven to come to her. Her marriage in heaven, the portals. This shit's not happening in real life. But you can, if you're alone in a jail cell, you have nobody around you, she's probably able to really escape mentally more than we would ever understand. And so, she's got years of practice of, I don't want to live here, so I'm going to learn how to check out. And you can get as good as you want, I'm assuming. I mean, once you've been in these situations for long enough, I'm assuming you learn how to really check out completely. And you don't even live in the world anymore. You don't feel the feelings anymore because you're so disconnected. What's up, Finn? New sub. Welcome to the community. Okay, so let's go through this. Types of red flags. Physical functioning. Are they sleeping too much or not enough? Have their eating patterns changed? Have their energy patterns changed? And such a person who's typically energetic, acting lethargic, or someone who exercises regularly seem fatigued. So for me, I wasn't around to watch a transformation here. Okay. This is what people really have a misunderstanding of where I was at. I got married in 2018 in January and moved out in like not even mid-February. Right after we came home from our honeymoon, we moved out. And so she had all of 2018 where she only had Tylee and JJ and Charles. Charles was still traveling. Lori had time, obviously, to go and cheat. She had time to go to the temple because JJ was going to school, and then Tylee had got her GED at some point. But again, Tylee was very independent for her age. She had her own car, everything. So really, Lori had a lot of freedom because there's nobody in the house. So here comes insert Melanie Gibb or insert whatever life Lori wanted. I mean, that's where this all comes into. But so I didn't get to see the sleeping changes or the eating patterns or anything of that degree. All I know is that she started telling people she doesn't need to do that stuff, which is exactly what happens in effing Twilight and when you become a vampire. So you take that for what it is. Like I said, fantasy life, wanting to be something you're not. It's all disconnected from reality. You're never going to twinkle and you're never going to be a vampire. So we'll move on from that. Emotional functioning. Is the person exhibiting unusual mood changes such as more irritable, or do they appear more easily frustrated? Here's what's scary. For me and for Lori, again, not close enough to see all these things. If anything, she was more calm. And that's what's more scary here. I think she got more crazy and more disconnected from reality because she was a lot more calm. She went prophet voice more often. If you don't know what I mean by that, excuse me. In the LDS church, the prophets usually talk very similarly. And it's kind of like this whispered, almost like soft kind of voice. So and an example would be like, brothers and sisters, I will see you in 6 months' time. It's kind of like that, but it's almost like every time somebody gets hyper spiritual that was LDS, kind of jumps into that voice. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say it. If you're LDS, you cannot deny that, bro. You can't. You just can't tell me that I'm wrong. I grew up with it, bro. I know what it is. I've seen it every Sunday. But it happens, right? It happens. And so, that was the only thing I noticed was disconnection, almost like more peaceful than ever. But that's crazy because she was doing the most, jacked up things, cheating, hiding all of that, planning all this stuff. Like, it's really crazy because I don't know if that was the break. I don't know if that was the point, but that's just kind of what it was. So, and then cognitive functioning. Are there changes in a way that a person is interpreting or internalizing events? Are they having illogical responses to things that they would normally handle logically? This doesn't apply to Lori, but this is good for information in general. These are changes you can start to see where, hey, this is not normal behavior for this person. And so this is where we need to start having these. This is where you can help someone in your own life. Again, the hope of these videos is awareness and then somehow bringing some change. You would hope that there's always a chance for someone to change. Excuse me, I'm having a really hard time with my throat right now. Like 2 days in a row. Excuse me. So the OCD thing, excuse me. The OCD thing, I don't think you can just brush over and say, hey, you're going to be fine. You can't do that. People who have OCD, it's not something they can really truly control or, get better or fix. I don't like this. You guys know I hate toxic positivity. Toxic positivity, and I also hate the word toxic. I hate words that are applied so often, spread like butter across the internet, that everybody labels things as way too therapeutic when it's not. You can't just call people narcissists. You can't just call people toxic. You can't just throw certain words out and think that that's okay to apply without really understanding what those words mean. What toxic positivity is somebody who almost refuses to acknowledge the situation and basically just says, hey, everything's gonna be fine. Let me tell you something. That is so discouraging when you're going through hell, because if your life, again, I always tell you guys this example just so you can understand where the help can come in here, is when I go to church every Sunday. We went to a church at that time that we had been going to for a while, and our pastor was more of a, what's the word? He was a what's that word called? Okay, I can't think of the word, but he was the guy that said, today's your day. It's gonna turn around. God's got your back. He's in your favor. He's it's a message of hope. The reality was, for me, it just got worse and worse and worse. And every Sunday, hey, this is the turnaround. Hey, this is going to be your day. God knows your pain. You're going to turn around today. Listen, there's nothing more discouraging when it just never actually comes through. Then you think, okay, well, God's mad at me. I'm too sinful to be this. I deserve this, blah, blah, blah. Not a great place to be, all right? So that's kind of where I'm like, I always discourage being, you know what? I don't ever do this with my friends or anybody comes to me and says they're having a hard time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it to make you feel better. I'm going to sit with you in the reality of what you're going through so you're not alone. That's it. That's the real offer that you can have. It's not to tell you that everything's going to go a certain way, because you know what? I don't believe God does that either. Sometimes we say these things like, why, God? Why? Why am I going through this? What is the point of this? And the reality is, even if he explained it to you, you might not understand it now. There's things I understand now, like I do with Lori, that I didn't understand even a couple years ago. But I'm sick and tired of people, everything's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. That's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I don't have any answers, but you're good. You're good. You're good. Get up. Get up. That's just really not the best way to deal with your problems. I don't know anybody who really feels better. You're promising something that's not reality based. And guess what? When it came to what my family was going through, what I was going through, it actually would have just been better to be like, look, you're just not alone. I got your back. I'm here with you. And you don't have to suffer like this by yourself. What was not helpful is to say, today's your day. You're done suffering. Here comes the blessings. Here comes the raining blessings. It's like, bro, it's every day gets worse. and you're up there talking nonsense. And again, I'm being very specific to my situation, but this is exactly why I am the way that I am too. I'm not a pessimist and I'm not a half empty guy. I'm a very hopeful person, and I think hope is the most important thing. What I'm not going to do is make you try to think that things are better than they are, but to know that you have love and support and that we're going to walk through whatever comes next. But I'm not going to keep trying to make you feel. That's not real hope to me. That's grasping at straws. And if it gets worse, then you're going to be mad that I lied to you. So we'll leave that there. Shout out to the pastor, but no, I don't think he's not trying to cause any issues here. But another thing I want to go through right here, when it comes to Lori specifically, I want to get hit on this. When we watch the behavior panel, and I watch her now, she's embraced villainy. I'll tell you right now, she's embraced villainy when it comes to certain people, right? When you watch her with Keith Morrison, when you watch her with Nate, when you watch her interview with these people, she embraces the villainy of what people do see her as, and she gets defensive and she has a fragile ego. And so this is the stuff I'm talking about. Those snaps, those really were you there? That's I grew up with that. No, that hasn't changed. Some of this stuff exists way before, right? Again, these are behavioral things that can and have an ability to be looked at and seen. I used to tell my mom all the time, hey, you're really taking it too far with the way you're talking to my dad in front of everybody. You are verbally assaulting this man in front of our entire family, demasculating him, calling him every name in the book. And she's like, really? Was I mean? I'm like, no, you were brutal. That was hard to even be near. This creates a toxic environment for everybody, because who wants to survive and live in a house like that where the parents fight all the time? So this is where I'm trying to get to, is looking back at what I saw from Lori. There was a lot of disassociation there. You know, the wound, the Band-Aid thing is exactly what I want to hit on today too. Going to Disneyland was great. These were highlights. When we went on trips, like, one thing I always have said, I'd love to be able to do that with my family, my kids, is let them be able to experience life in, you know, the world. Like, go take them on trips, take them to different places, take them to different cultures, let them experience what the world is and teach them how to function in it, right? But these were the Band-Aids that we did. We ran away all the time. And that just shows you that as running goes, when people are runners, so it's fight or flight, when you get to that decision making, that black and white thinking, when you go in there and you run and you move houses and you do it all, and you get new furniture and you get new clothes and you literally change your hair and change your name, do whatever the hell you want, you're the same person when you get there. I promise you. Ain't nothing changed, really. That's what people don't understand. You're running from something that's internal, that can be fixed. I promise you that. It's not impossible. And I'm telling you that because there's hope for everybody who wants to change. I'm going to say something very controversial, but it's just the truth. If Chad and Lori wanted to change, they could. They could choose differently. They could look at themselves and say, what am I doing? I can't believe I did this. I am so sorry, and this is where I'm at, and I can choose to live the rest of my life in a different way. That is the whole point of the gospel, is the fact that you're not too far gone to change tomorrow, right? You make a new decision, you start thinking differently. That's what's going to change your life. What's unfortunate is that people hide behind that and don't want to change that. They don't want to see it. They've already lived their life with all those roadblocks and it made sure that nobody could get to them and put themselves behind a wall and hide in a hole and all that stuff. I get it. It's not fun to go back to the past. It's not fun to relive your trauma. It's not fun to dig up all this old stuff and live through it all over again. It hurts. It feels like you're dying all over again. It feels like you're back in that moment. You have days after therapy sometimes where you feel the weight of what you experience because it's redug up. But guess what? It never died. It never went away. It just, all you did was learn how to cope with that feeling. This is exactly why I say this to you, because this is exactly how Lori ended up where she was. And I'm assuming Chad's the same way. You get prideful. You start thinking that you're better than people. You start getting an ego. You start pretending you're something you're not because you're so fragile. You don't want to look at yourself and say, hey, you know what? I'm not all I should be or could be. I didn't make all the right choices. And you shame yourself. And so you're like, well, I'm a god and I'm so powerful. Like, shut the F up. No, you're not. You're not. And that's the thing. That's the 180 of how you feel. You feel so inadequate that you want to be a god, that you want to dominate people. You want to take their lives. You want to steal their money. You don't care what the consequences are. And then you're the victim when you get put into jail. And now, it's everybody else's fault. And then you start blaming and causing more and more damage, as much damage as you can cause because you hate yourself that much. She hates herself. Lori hates herself. Has always hated herself. Never knew she had any worth. Never felt like she was worth anything. Married the wrong men because that's her pattern, and chose men that she needed to try to fix or whatever the case may be, try to convert them to her religion. And she just never had that. She never had her identity. And so that is the product of a broken life. When it comes to religion, she went to hyper religious and, goes to this place of, well, I have always felt so broken down. I've never felt like I'm enough. This is exactly what Jodi Hildebrandt said in her stuff. I'm sure Lori has said this in her podcast at some point before they were all deleted or whatever they did with them. I know she felt this way, but the inadequacy to not be loved, to not be chosen, to not be seen, to not be protected, right? You have to look at it from, I think, men and women. From the female perspective, as a wife, I'm assuming she wanted to feel loved, feel protected, to feel taken care of, to feel like somebody loves her in whatever way that she receives love, by the way. Not everybody receives love the same way. That's how I assume she feels. And she hates herself. And so because that wound was never dealt with, it led to all of this. All this damage, all of the self-sabotage, all of the literal sabotage, all of the anger and the hurt. And it's the same thing, man. When you go into historical people and you look at them, they have a history of why the way that they are. And it's always, I would say 99.9% of the time, it is from pain. It is from trauma. I mean, go really study into Hitler, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. There's something about people who get damaged early that flip around and do some of the most heinous of things because the love, the acceptance, the being seen, all those things that are really crucial to humans don't exist in their life. And so they just become monsters. Because they're like, well, F everything. I'm going to be a monster, basically. I don't know. I don't know what they do with that. But I think that fuels hate in them. That fuels this fire to be, horrible. The signs that I know, I can tell you right now that you should be really looking for is when someone starts to really branch out religiously. And I'm going to say this really softly, but also as clear as I can be. Discovering your spirituality is very, very important. What's not good is to hear, okay, I'll make it as plain as and clear as I can. From a Christian perspective, if you are Christian and all of your belief systems start to live outside of that, and they're starting to be mixed into other things, you should question your base religion if you truly are Christian. That's where I'm trying to get at. If your base religion is being completely 180, and you're talking about stuff that really just is not true, this is a good chance to look at your life and say things like this. I'm going to say something that I think is maybe just different perspective now, but I truly believe that religion did not play a giant role here as much as desire of what was really going on in their hearts, which was wanting to be accepted, wanting what they wanted, wanting freedom, wanting power, wanting to run away, to be whimsical, to pretend that life is a fantasy. Chad and Lori were both very fanciful, very. to the point where they were able to create that fantasy life for a very short amount of time. Willing to do anything to get there. And they did that. Their minds were so overwhelmed with this idea of what they wanted and what they're pretending to have that multiple people would get in circles, pray death on people, try to change the weather, physically take someone's life, steal their money because of what was going on inside of their brains. This all goes back to, though, wounds across the board. If you really look at it, it's a chain that goes back. This goes back. These wounds are like, and again, we talked about this yesterday with the water. These are different avenues that happened back here, and they just got worse, and they got stronger, and they got more played on. That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you, is that this is the best time in your life ever to start looking for the help you need, the help that someone else needs. You can't force someone to get help, by the way. You cannot tell somebody to do this work or force them into doing this work. And if you feel like that's going to work for you, I'm sorry to burst the bubble, but don't expect anything from that person, because this is not something you do because you don't threaten a relationship for this. You don't threaten them with anything, financials, whatever the case may be. You can't force someone to go here. This is a choice you have to make because it sucks. And if you do have some of this stuff, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. If you have a personality disorder, anxiety disorder, behavior disorder, mood disorder, we talked about this. This is where there is help. There's more help now than ever. And yet here we go, every single day, people taking their lives because they don't know that there's real help. They think that they're never going to have a life outside of this. It all starts with your mental. I look back at Lori and think, imagine before she ever told me at 8 years old that she's going to die in 2 years. Or telling me again, I'm going to die soon. And then going from I'm going to die soon to the world's ending. This is it. You really don't have a chance, you know? Good luck, kid. There's really no point. It's coming. 2012. Coming. World's going to end. There's really nothing you can do about it. We'll have food storage, though. We'll have some milk, some powdered milk, some powdered cookies, some water with some tablets in it in a box. We'll have it ready, though. We're going to wait for that day so we can have that water and that milk. And again, what's the point? Like, when you tell your kids, I'm just going to say this, and I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but if you're really obsessed with the end of the world, you need to look at yourself and think, you're damaging a future for your child. You really, truly are. You truly are making them feel like there's no point. I was told multiple times, there's no point. Don't try, Hopefully you'll have, you'll get a wife and have kids, in the tents or whatever happens at the end in Zion or something like that. Like, hopefully you'll get to have those things. But, don't really think too hard about life. Life is so hard. Don't really think about it. So it's like almost conditioning to make you think that life doesn't matter, right? To make you think that there's really just a fantasy life. And you know what? I lived like this for a while. Going into, from 21 to like 24, I think I really still like had a part of this idea was like, I want to be an athlete, or I want to do, these certain things in my life that I've always dreamed about. And so my idea was like, nothing else is going to stop me from getting to that point. And I think that that's a little bit part of that was that fantasy idea. Like, I'm just going to go towards that 100%. And I had a misunderstanding of how that would look, and this idea that I would make it, and this idea that I would be where I wanted to be by just imagining it. Well, guess what? That's not what happened here. So I tell you all that because there's nothing wrong with your dreams. There's nothing wrong with thinking about something, being positive, working towards something. What happens is it's disassociation. Disassociation is your number one here. Lori had pain in her life. She disassociated from it. She didn't deal with that pain. She moved on from it. She took us to Disneyland. She took us to go to Universal Studios. And guess what? We had a hell of a time when we did those things. Those are some of the best times of our lives. But doesn't change the fact that when we got home, the same problems existed, the same wounds existed. Nothing was healed. Nothing was dealt with. Nothing was fixed. Nothing was worked through. There was never conversations about it. It wasn't dealt with properly. So you're just left to fend for yourself emotionally. I say this as a parent and as a former son, And, you know, as somebody who's just trying to help you guys the best that I possibly can in life, this is a great way to look at ourselves first and then look at others around us and see if there's anything that we can do when it comes to these situations where we're able to raise red flags and say, where is this going? How long does this mental toll take before it takes a drastic turn and somebody makes really bad decisions? Because mentally they're done, they're cooked. Their brain is over it, their heart is over it, their nervous system is shot, they're done. Then they start doing something drastic, and you never know what that looks like. So this is always to help you the best I possibly can. Talk more about this, keep this out in the open, and hopefully the right people I always pray the right people see these type of videos so that way it can help. So if you know anybody who would benefit from the video, send them over here. Let them know we got a community over here. Let them know that we still love you, and it doesn't matter if you're going through a hard time, if you have issues or not. This isn't a place to make you feel rejected or judged or anything. It's about a call to be better. And every day I have to make calls to try to be better too. And there's days I fail at that. There's a lot of days I fail at that. So I'm never going to I'm not talking down by any means. I'm in the crowd with you. This is always a good lesson for me, and to just let's pull the shame off of a lot of this stuff when it comes to mental health. It's not a shame. It's not shameful. You're in your head every single second that you're alive. You're either dreaming or thinking or using your brain to do something to function. It's like the most important thing you could possibly take care of is your mind and your mental health. So take good care of yourself, man. Love yourself. Mods, thank you guys. Appreciate you. Love you. And our community, I love you guys. Yeah. Also, we are going to have something special for all of our people who are Chiefs and Motha fricken ones on the Discord. We're going to start watching some stuff on the Discord. So I'll let you guys know in the Discord when that happens. If you're a Chief or Motha fricken one, get that link and come watch. You know, we'll do a little watch party. We're going to watch documentaries. We're going to watch different stuff because Discord's like the only place we can do that without all the crazy stuff that happens on YouTube. So we'll get there, but I'm excited for that. I'm excited to do that with you guys. So, all right, man. Appreciate you guys. Love you. Go take care of yourself.